Vision. Following clues left by our ancestors, we unbury the past to reveal a knowledge of unfathomable value, putting us just a little closer to our own true birthrights. From the secret history of a possible bloodline of Jesus Christ, to secret history of America's founders, to the secret history of extraterrestrial interaction on our planet, here to bring light to the night. Your host for Night Vision Radio, Renee Barnett.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Night Vision, coming to you this week from southern France. I've been here now for going on a month. Going to be heading out pretty soon, but got a couple more adventures before I leave. And so I thought we'd talk a little bit tonight about some of the things that we've seen over the past couple of weeks or so. But before I get started with that, I must introduce my wonderful historian and basically co-host of Night Vision, James Martin.
Hi, everybody. Good evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are.
Wherever you are.
Good to be back with everyone.
And we're both together in the same location, separate rooms, but just across a wall. So we've been running around and scoping out the area. James had already planned some expeditions for us, and some things that he had already checked out, and then wanted to show me and a couple of other of our friends and information seekers in this area. We started out, I guess we'll start with the worst first. You want the good news or the bad news? The good news is we started out to visit a church that we amongst ourselves called the Devil Church because of some strange things that you see in the church, paintings, symbols, and things that just don't seem to fit in a church. And James had been there once before and gotten some wonderful images, but we were going to go back and do some more filming. So we drove an hour and a half. I'm not going to give the exact town location because I'm calling it a devil church, and I don't think they'd appreciate that. But we took an hour and a half drive, got there, got out of the car, and started walking toward the church. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with French villages, but the shops are literally on the street and with a narrow sidewalk. And then to separate them from the traffic that might be banging into them, they have what they call, I'd never heard the term, bollards placed in the sidewalks. And they're these posts that are about maybe 3 feet tall. They're metal. I think they're filled with concrete. Anyway, they're solid. Nothing is bend them or get through them. And our group, there were 4 of us, were walking along, and I was bringing up the rear. I was the last one, and I was just sort of following them as they walked up the sidewalk. But I was looking around, and I had not noticed that they made a little zig. Instead, I zagged, and I tripped over the bollard. I'll let James tell you what happened.
Well, yeah. So we're on this way to the Devil Church, and the next thing, a sort of thud. I mean, I could have shown some pictures, but you were in a particularly bad way, and
I almost posted a couple of those pictures, and I thought, oh no, I'm not going to subject people to that.
Yeah,
I looked hideous.
It wasn't pleasant. I mean, I turned around and you were on the floor, blood coming from your mouth, and some people in a nearby restaurant hurried straight out, administered a bit of first aid, but within 10, 15 minutes, the the ambulance was there. You were hurried into the ambulance. They had a look at you and, checked you out, really. I think it concussed and certainly, some injuries to your jaw and to your ribs. It wasn't remotely a pleasant sight, but I did note they thought you were exceptionally young and all of this, which
Yeah, and I'm not going to say what my age is. I mean, I'm pretty open with that generally, but I don't want to scare anyone. But they thought that I wasn't understanding the question that they were asking me. And so they went and asked everybody else, to what my age really was. But the funnier thing is that they thought I was drunk, or they thought that might have been the reason that I fell. I guess someone in the restaurant had said that I didn't trip, that I just passed out, that I just fell down, but that wasn't the case at all. And so they asked me, do you drink alcohol? And I said, no, never. They said, never. And so I thought it was funny because it was early in the day, but James, you reminded me that we're in France, and generally at lunchtime, people have their wine and sometimes they just carry on. So that was kind of funny that they thought I just sort of passed out on the street, I guess. But anyway, so we hobbled on along. After the ambulance left, they did ask me if I wanted to go to the hospital. They consulted with the doctor. It was so wonderful. They were so nice and so attentive and so thorough. Those emergency workers, they're called pompiers here. There's the fire department, I guess. Mm-hmm. And they were just wonderful. And I kept saying, who do I pay? I've got insurance because I picked up a travel policy before I came over. No, it's free. It's France. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that is amazing. And had they taken me to hospital, that would have been free as well. So I'm not complaining about the socialist medicine in France. It was wonderful.
No, it works well. But I will just say to everyone, I have a confession that I later revealed. So in our party, it was weird because as we're on the drive, we were two separate vehicles and or automobiles. I'll do my American translate. Vehicles.
Vehicle.
It had this really, really ominous feeling as we were driving, and it wasn't just me. There was also one of our mutual friends who had this feeling. We thought it was due to the weather, though, because it was particularly stormy. And no, it turned out that the feeling was, you thought it was autumn or fall, I suppose. But
I thought it was fall, and I fell. That's all it was. The thing too is, of course, once the ambulance left and, I climbed out of the back of there and we carried on to a little cafe that was right there outside the church to sit down and drink a cup of coffee. And I remember saying, I'm not going in. I'm not going to go in the church because I never do that. That's the first time that's ever happened to me, particularly getting injured as I did. So I said, well, I'm not going in. And then one by one, everybody else said, no, not going in, not going in. But then you revealed something about what we would have seen had we gone in, which was particularly scary or weird.
Yeah, I mean,
describe that whole painting and what's there.
Well, just before I do, I mean, I've been into the site twice, and it's a round church. It's very unusual in its design. In fact, it's unique in the world. It's a 14-sided church with an heptagon sort of shape above it. It's unique in its construction. There isn't anything else like it. But I suppose, how can I phrase this? When you go into this church, you would think that it's pretty obvious that you can't get lost. But on 2 occasions when I've been into the church, even the second time, leaving my bag near the entrance, it is incredibly disorienting. I can't describe it in any other way than, you get lost in a building. The entirety, in my view anyway, of the church is designed to disorient you. So, there's 2 ways of looking at this. I mean, one would be, well, actually, that nature, that disorienting nature is perhaps the reason you fell, or it's just the bollard. But it's certainly unusual, and all of this. Fortunately, one injury.
I kind of regret not going in now,
Well, an injury for one is an injury for all, so none of us were going in anyway. But fortunately, I did take some pictures of the inside of the church from a previous visit, which I'll share with you. So as you go into the church, I mean, just for those who are watching the show, for those listening, and the description of this heptagonal nature of it, 14 sides on the base, heptagonal as you look further up. I'm just showing an image that really describes this. I mean, it really doesn't feel like a church when you go in, because there are pews all around the base for people to sit. So for some people, if they're sitting listening to a mass, they have their backs, not the back, sorry, the priest has their back to them. It's just really unusual. You've got.
So is it sort of, they're all around sort of stadium style? I mean,
yeah, I mean, I've got a relief actually. You can see, firstly, you enter as a visitor in the petit port, the small door. The grand port, from what I recall, is sealed. So you go in this very narrow door, and you can see on the relief diagram, I should say, of the church, how you can see that sort of rounded shape. You can see the sides of the church, and you can see some of the rooms that come from it. Now, the church is built, from what I understand, on top of a Roman altar to the goddess Minerva, the goddess of wisdom, and it is believed that in fact was also built on top of a Celtic sacrificial offering site. Is the best I can look with that.
You find that so much here. I don't know about in the rest of Europe, but certainly in France, churches are often built on top of other worship sites, that were pagan or some other religion. And, the sort of stated reason was, we're stamping out paganism, we're slamming down a Christian church right on top of it. But I think that there's also a school of thought that they believed that these sites were particularly special somehow, and that they had been chosen for, some sort of geological qualities or some sort of elements or something like that in the land, which the pagans, I'm saying that loosely, harnessed that power from that particular spot. I mean, we hear things about ley lines and things like that. Often these buildings are built on top of water, some moving water that's flowing underneath, which in a lot of belief systems has sort of magical or alchemical connotations. So what do you think? Do you think it's more right, that they're just stamping out the pagans, or that they thought, hey, we're going to take advantage of whatever it was they found and they were using?
Well, I think it's both, because you've got practically no church built prior to the 14th century in Europe was built independently of sites before it. So nearly every church in Europe is built upon a previous church, built upon a previous I suppose we would call them pagan, but a different culture's religious site. And yes, they were scouring the land for sites of particular importance. Some of the themes with them are usually there in places where, as you've said, there's rivers or streams or there's flowing water. Sometimes of very fertile places, you would expect that with rivers and streams, obviously, but there are some places that are in pretty rocky places where there's flowing water as well. I think the church was really wanting to stamp its foot down in its early days, and that sort of tradition carried on. I mean, for example, if listeners aren't with me on this point, I will just say that the Vatican is built upon the Circus Maximus.
Wow.
The Circus of Nero, I should say. So it's they've reused an old site essentially for their purposes, and some people have suggested things like ley lines flow through them, things like this. I'll leave that to them.
There's been a lot of stories about the church at Rennes-le-Château, Church of Mary Magdalene, it's called currently. And there's been stories about what it was built upon. I heard it was built on an Isis temple and other things. Have you looked into that, and can you share?
Yeah, I have. And again, each day it seems goes by, the previous rumours and allegations of that village. We just found something to do with St. Anthony. It's actually not that accurate. The problem with the town of Rennes, well, it's not a problem, but the town of Rennes-le-Château, some suggested that there was Roman activity up there. There may have been, but I think in the archaeological archives that I can find, only 2 Roman coins have been there, which it really isn't typical for a settlement or even a fort. You'd expect to see something else. We do know that the Carolingians built a fortress up there, and that's really where things start. So when we're looking at temples to Isis and we're looking at things like this, there isn't anything in the recorded history that supports it. But then again, what we do know about certain facets of history, there are things that aren't recorded. But when if I'm trying to demonstrate this factually, I can't find anything that would support that.
Did you find anything about what was there before?
Yeah, well, it makes sense that there may have been some watchtower. It's wooden. It would have to be wooden. There's not much archaeology that goes on in the southwest of France. Generally, it's like with the rest of the world. Funding digs can be costly, but there's not a lot of funding anymore for things like this. So there isn't anything that's Roman up there. In fact, even it gets problematic with the Visigoths as well, because the Visigoths were desperately trying to be Roman and they repaired Roman buildings, but there isn't anything really in the archaeology. So my suggestion would be there's a watchtower. I mean, you've got to bear in mind, Rennes-le-Château is up a hill. You have to drive 4 to 6 kilometers, depending on how you're getting there, right the way up. And who wants to do that when the fertile valley is beneath it? For military purposes and military installations, castles, things like that, well, if you have soldiers stationed somewhere, they need to be fed, they need to be watered and clothed and supplied. So that generally spurs on a village. And so the current village of Rennes-le-Château, we can really perhaps date to maybe the 8th century, something like this, 700, maybe a little earlier. But there was a lower village of what was then called Redet. Oh, it's proposed to be called Redet.
It was a lot bigger.
A hell of a lot bigger, yeah. So the plateau beneath the current village had housing, had economic activity, and was walled. So the upper village was walled, and this is where you find your Carolingian and then later 13th century fort, which stands today. The lower village, there was housing and things like that, and again, that was walled too. The only notion of anything sort of approaching the Roman period in the immediate vicinity, I would suggest, is the small village today of Custoza, or Custodium, as it would have been, perhaps gaining its name from some sort of prison, maybe. But again, you know,
and that's right next to Rennes-le-Château, and you can actually see those ruins, you know, as you're driving to Rennes-le-Château, and also from the village in certain places. So it's very nearby.
Yeah, I mean, I suggest the word prison, but we need to not think about it in our understanding today, because we didn't incarcerate people the further back in time. They were used as holding places for trial or something like that. So again, it could very well mean, you know, the heavily fortified place, but it doesn't seem to be the case that Rennes-le-Château had a Roman or even Visigothic origin, though they were most certainly in the area. It is curious to note, though, that when the Arians took over the bishopric in Carcassonne briefly, Redet was a bishopric itself. So there was a religious element to it, which, again, if we've got a large bustling city by the 800s, let's say 900s, then that would, you know, that demonstrates that it is a sizable place. Not of 30,000 people, though, I'm sorry to say.
No,
just the rumours, because we'd expect to see.
It's so difficult, you know, to separate the wheat from the chaff in these mysteries, because so many people have been involved and there's so many stories, and it's amazing how a story will catch on and then it just becomes fact in people's minds. So it's really good to try to just tear away at the layers. And
well, it doesn't help also. The medieval folk loved adding extra zeros to numbers. So if you believe some of the battles, there were 300,000 people, you know, in one battle, and it's just, well, 300,000 when, I don't know, let's pick a date. In 1300, the population of Great Britain, the island, is about 2 billion. Are we really suggesting that
every man, woman, and child?
Yeah, not quite. 3,000 maybe. So I think that probably is one of the roots as to why it is you have this population. Crucially, if you're looking at exceptionally large populations, I mean, 30,000 Narbonne, let's say, in the 800s, has a population of around 50 to 100,000 people. And we can demonstrate that because we can see where people were buried, or cremated at least, and there isn't any of that. But yeah, it's just one of those things. You know, it's not to rule out any hermitages or things like that. It's just, if we're being correct about it, we always have to look for the facts first, not the opinion first.
Yeah, and of course, Rennes-le-Château, the church there has been looked at and studied and gone through so many times because of its odd interior, kind of garish, really, the redecoration of the church by Abbe Saunière when he was there, and some odd images and odd things that and we have seen repeated in some churches, but it's just strange that I can't think of course there's nothing anywhere near this old, but I can't think of anywhere in the United States say that there's this weird church. It just doesn't exist.
Well, there's a lot of weird churches. I mean, the site that sorry, Renee, one more, that we did take a trip to. Sorry.
Some of us did. But, I'm sorry to interrupt you to go on a tangent about Rennes-le-Chateau, but I just find that so many times there's a story beneath the story, and it seems to be a running theme. But go on about the interior and what it was that you found there.
Well, just a few things to wet people's whistles, and I would imagine that if what I'm about to say will interest certain people. So if you want to get in touch with me and Renee, info@newrennies.org. That's info, INFO, at newrennies, NEWRENNIES.org. Because the interesting thing about this church is, again, the 14 sides, and I've mentioned the octagonal nature. There are 7 arcades within the church. And of course, when we're looking at anything with the number 7, we then need to just pay a little bit more attention, because of course 7 is the number that is often attributed to that of the divine. The other thing I'm going to say, which I haven't shared with you, Renee, is the height of the columns. Now, I've just reviewing my notes from when I took a trip there myself, and the height of the columns is 6.66 meters. I thought that would interest, and again in this this circular pattern. So, again, when when we're looking at this,
the interior columns inside.
Yeah.
Oh, that go around the circle.
Yes, and the number 7 again links to divine wisdom. So it's that wisdom and Minerva is really still present. I'll show you some images before I get on to the big image. You've got some very unusual carvings. Now, the carvings were produced by someone who is simply known as the master of Kabastani, the Maitra, the Kabastani. And we don't know who this person was. He's carving in the 12th century. However, we can see in various other churches the style absolutely replicated, and that ranges from Tuscany through the Eastern Pyrenees, the Aude, and Northern Catalonia. Who he was, we really, really don't know. There's certainly very interesting depictions. Now, the image that's currently up is quite vulgar. I don't need to describe, but let's just say that it's
not vulgar.
Well, it's a saint emerging from
a womb.
A vulva. There is a tradition of this, especially in Scotland, with the Sheila na gigs. Certainly curious to find in the church. Not unusual, but there we go. Now, the next 2 images might surprise you. So if we go to Rennes-le-Chateau, we've got the Asmodeus. We've got some sort of demon, that kind of idea.
Demon.
In this church,
demonic baptismal font.
In this church, this is a depiction of Mary Magdalene holding
Somebody's pregnant.
3 loaves above what appears to be quite a pregnant belly there, and very eerie. It's when you stood in front of it, the eyes seem to follow you around the room there. It's
I was going to look into that at the 3 loaves to see if there was any significance to that. If indeed those are loaves, I would imagine they are.
That was my thoughts when I was there. But what stopped me dead in my tracks was the stained glass. Now, I don't expect anyone to be able to translate this. It's a difficult image to see anyway. These were photos taken for my consumption and all of this. But the stained glass, I'm not sure what the dating of it is. I'd be very surprised if it was 12th century or anything like this, namely because the language is modern French. But here's what it says towards the bottom. So you've got venez manger de mon pain, buvez le vin que j'ai préparé, which means come and eat the demon bread and drink the wine which I have prepared. And it is one of the most unusual things to find within a church. Now, there might be some explanation I'm not aware of course, there usually is. But it just stopped me dead in my tracks. Why on earth would you want to eat the devil's bread and drink the wine? And why would that advertisement, I suppose, be in a church? Just very
into that.
Very, very bizarre. And I haven't found anything really that sort of conclusively explains what it's about. Just very unusual. And it would seem on our visits, which would have been my 3rd, it wasn't it wasn't a trip for us that day.
Apparently not. Do you have a good image of the woman under the table?
I have somewhere, yes, but not available for.
Oh, okay.
For us to see. But yes, you can. Well, you can clearly see that there's wine and bread offered on the table in the stained glass. I just can't figure out.
Interestingly, though, there, what you shared with me after the fall was that there's an image of a woman with red hair lying on the floor under the table. Yeah,
that's it. That was one of those where you're looking back at the images. And you think, wow. I mean, there were all sorts of allegations. Mary Magdalene had red hair, which for someone from Ethiopia, I would find it pretty staggering. But again, it's just very, very intriguing. I've got to say. And again,
it reminds me a bit of the. Pardon?
6.66 meters. I mean, it
reminds me of the Parallels Church, where the postcode is 66600 for that village, and there's definitely something weird.
Well, there you are, knocking at the door at
knocking on the devil's door.
Yeah, and again, another site that I know we've covered in previous shows, but trying to get into that place, it was really this abandoned.
Trying to even get up to the village is often a task, if not impossible, because for some reason they have it blocked off. They're stopping you. They don't allow anyone to go up. It's just very strange.
Yeah, and if you do make it up, you don't last too long there because they send the
The gendarmes.
The gendarme up to, very politely escort you away. Very unusual. And again, that church, the last thing I was expecting was an Irish connection. And this was
this?
So this is at Perilos.
It is?
Yeah, this was marking the 600th anniversary of the pilgrimage of Raymond de Perilos to Loch Derg. Raymond de Perilos allegedly goes to Ireland. I say allegedly. Seems to be some records of it, to rescue one of his friends, another lord, from purgatory. And it was believed that Loch Derg, which had an island within the loch itself, had an entrance through a cave to purgatory. And he goes into purgatory and finds that his lord's not there, all's well. And by the time he gets back to Perilos, he's now the Lord of Perilos, and it all worked out very well for him. But it's a very strange. Perilos itself is an exceptionally strange place, namely because it's so difficult to get to.
In the weird soil and rocks that seem to have been burned or something. It seems to at some point been under great heat.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the in the village actual, you've got a gate, essential, and what we would call perhaps an advanced fortress, if you're looking at it from a military perspective, to the big castle that dominates the area, which is called Salvaterra. Land of our Savior, land that saves, whatever it is. Now, Salvaterra Fortress, as it was called, is better known as the Chateau d'Eaupoul, and was built essentially to prevent any further Moorish.
The chateau there, or the Chateau d'Eaupoul in Rennes Chateau?
No, the Chateau d'Eaupoul at Perios.
Oh, yeah.
It literally just means, well, d'Eaupoul, I'll give you a breakdown. It literally just means the high pool. So Eaupoul is the Catalan colloquial Eaupoul. We know it in Rennes-le-Chateau as Haute. I'm mispronouncing this deliberately. Haute pool. Again, it just means the same thing, sort of high pool. And up at Perios, it's like with any cave. There's caves that have this very strange sweet water naturally occurring, it seems. And of course, one of the caves is called the Cave of the Magdalene, and all of that. Riddled with spiders, so I won't be going in.
There's these cavernous openings there that have, really amazing sights inside. I mean, I know there's one room that's gigantic. I call it the cathedral, and it has all these amazing stalactites and stalagmites making unusual shapes, and you can actually get into a boat and go on a boat in there. I don't think that I would do that, but
no, I mean, stalactites and stalagmites are interesting, but it's the other arachnid population that just ultimately put me off.
Yeah,
I mean, these are big and poisonous, by the way. They're not, your smaller critters, but yeah.
I wanted to remind everyone that your book is out and up for sale, up for grabs, and I'm going to post a picture of it right now. Whoops.
It's flashing.
Are you doing that at the same time?
Probably.
You do it. There you go. It's called Uncharted, a rediscovered history of voyages to the Americas before Columbus. yeah, we don't have a lot of old buildings and things, but we do have some history that goes back a bit of a ways, at least, certainly before 1492, and that there were lots of visitors coming. And what do you reckon was the point of time where the first visitors, which I would imagine would be someone like maybe the Phoenicians, would have arrived? I know we've got some signs and things that seem to indicate that there was, maybe Vikings there in around, the year 1000 or 1035, around that area. Were there people that were coming long before that?
Well, the key question is how many arrived and returned. So we know that my usual stuff here, which is, the Americas wasn't really discovered. The first people were the people who were already there, the native population. But if we take a Eurocentric, Asia-centric view of things, for sure, the Norse were there. It's beyond question. 1960, essentially ship repair facilities found in Lancer Meadow. For me and you, that's Jellyfish Cove. The northern tip of Newfoundland fits the description from various sagas, and there were a variety of finds as recent as 2022 from a Professor Pavlo Chiesa at the University of Milan. The Vikings are in the bag, or the Norse, if we're being more appropriate. The son of Erika and Rauda, Eric the Red, Leif Erikson, almost certainly is there. And Lancer Meadows, the UNESCO heritage site, I should argue, fits the bill of what was called Markland, the wooded land. The key question is Vinland, the fertile place, which most likely is New England. Prior to that, though, I remember when I was speaking to Tim during the book, and I just ended up chuckling and sort of adding a little bit, was this depiction of the Norse. They get to Greenland and in fact Iceland, around the 800s, the 9th century, and find Irish hermits living there. And they saw which way the wind was blowing pretty rapidly and left. So the Irish, Brendan the Navigator, possibly, maybe a little bit more by way of story, but the Irish most certainly were as far as Greenland. And if you want to be very technical about it, that's on the American plate, the North American plate. So it's in Americas. What's to stop them having forayed further? So you've got the Irish. We know that they were fishing off the coast of Newfoundland around the 600s. Prior to that, the Romans, 2 vessels have been found, and plenty of amphorae in the port of Rio de Janeiro. Robert Marks, the submarine archaeologist, uncovering, and in fact, I remember I've been quite shocked at this because of the expense at the time, but they were carbon dated to around 2,000 years prior to excavation, which fits in with the Romans, the Egyptians, and even the Phoenicians sort of after them. The Phoenicians were a Semitic group. They didn't have an empire. They had city-states, but were expanding westwards out of the Mediterranean from today's Lebanon, the Levant, as we call it, right the way up to Gades, today's Cadiz, near the Pillars of Hercules or Gibraltar. The question is why they're moving against trade. Is it just colonization? The Carthaginians were famously Phoenicians, I suppose, in some circles. But, did they end up traveling, trading in Central and Southern America? Most certainly they got there. Then you get to the Egyptians, and there's a huge mystery It's not just depictions of corn cobs or maize that are found on nearly 1,000, I think we're at now, monuments and all of this. But it's, and that in isolation might be explainable, but you've then got the great, Professor Balabanova checking previous work, for example, on the finding of tobacco. And tobacco leads in the digestional tracts of Ramses and many others, and then leading to cocaine and various other drugs only found. Well, cocaine's not found in the Americas. Hold on a second, let me correct. At the time, they're not using it as powder, but that being found, the cocoa plant found within uniquely the Americas at that time. How on earth it got to the old world is a mystery. And if it was, as I keep on saying to people, here's the thing. We've got two problems. Either the mummies were contaminated by Egyptologists, in which case there was a serious smoke and drug problem in the archaeological world, or the Egyptians were having some pretty wild parties. They're our real choice. And we know that the pharaohs and others used narcotics. Quite where that came from. And then before that, we've got the Bronze Age, where there's not enough copper and tin in Europe to account for the bronze that's found within Europe at this point. So where did it come from? And the northern shores of Michigan, you have these great scars in the ground of copper having been mined. Tin, in central Southern America, tin and copper you need to produce bronze, and yet no traditions within the native population of metallurgy in this way. Very few bronze artifacts found, in fact. Yet in Europe, there's it's an arms race. So
I know that you're loath to speculate on things and make guesses about things, but just this once, if you could just suspend that. If I was holding a gun to your head right now and made you opine on when the first foreign visitors, made it to the New World, what would be your guess?
Bronze Age cultures.
About
3,000 years ago.
Wow. And what group would you think might be the first? I know it's not written in stone or anything like that, but would it have been like the Egyptians or the Phoenicians? Most likely.
No, I think before them. I think Bronze Age cultures, you're perhaps talking 8,000 years ago. I should say not Bronze Age, a pre-Bronze Age. When we're getting to about 3,000 years ago, you've got the bronze that I've spoke about is one thing, but if we go further back than that, you've got the Clovis point, which is found, which originates, I should say, in the west of France, and it would appear somehow ended up in development in the Americas at the same time. So I think if I have to stake claim to it, 8,000 years ago, pre-Bronze Age cultures.
Wow, that's really interesting. So, but for those who are interested in the Americas and in those details about who we know came over and what the best evidence is, you can find that in Uncharted. So send us a note or just go to Amazon and get this book, A Rediscovered History of Voyages to the Americas Before Columbus by Tim Wallace Murphy and James Martin. Now, we should say Tim started this book obviously before he passed away, and he and James worked on it a bit together, and then James picked it up at Tim's behest to finish the book, to edit and then finish. I think it was editing it first, and then it became finishing. So that's will be actually, I guess, the final book for Tim.
Yeah.
There may be some manuscripts laying around somewhere, but as far as published works,
no,
as of now, this will be his.
That will be it for Tim. He didn't give any indication that any unfinished manuscript, A, for my involvement, or B, anything else. So that will be that for Tim. I am, however,
coming up after that. We've got a series of books that are being written as we speak. Probably you're working on it in your head right now.
I certainly have been, yes.
We're going to be tracing the real history of the Knights Templar and how they started, starting way back before they were even conceived, and then going forward to where did they end up? No, they didn't all just disappear in October, on October 13th. They actually went somewhere else. Some changed their name. Oh, there we go. Order of magnitude. That looks really good. I'm anxious for those in out of order.
And finally, the Last Orders.
Oh. Then what are you going to do? Rome. The whole story.
No, if I end up writing about Rome, I don't think I'd stop. No, I think after that, a working title of something called Keys to the Valley, which is the sort of real history of the Rennes-le-Château area in southwestern France. Essentially, the idea that you can jump onto a bus and stop at these places, and a bit of the histories and real mysteries of the area. But yes, my focus at the moment is running on my own steam with the rise of the Order of Magnitude, the rise of the Knights Templar, and I am finding things daily. This book is writing me. So just yesterday, finding a Templar pilgrimage route to Compostela at Santiago, St. James.
Are we going to be going on that route tomorrow or the following day?
It's part of it. I don't think I'd be able to.
Well, we won't make the entire pilgrimage, no.
I don't. I was just going to say I don't think we've got the time to walk, but yeah, certainly some sites and some Roman sites. I mean, if you're wondering why I'm slightly red in my face, I'm still. I mean,
still sunburned.
Yeah, I'm still recovering from when we went to a Roman site and just a few pretty pictures to.
Oh, this was down in Spain, where we are headed again tomorrow. Not to this place, but we're headed back to Spain tomorrow for a couple of days.
Yeah, a beautiful Greco-Roman site.
That's really pretty. The picture of the statue overlooking the sea.
Well, that was a Greek health spa we were looking at. So it just really fascinating places. I mean, for those people who are interested in the mystery, I mean, I'm always surprised how well phones can take pictures these days. I mean, those as hot and baked as we were just looking at some of these images, it looks Just absolutely beautiful, and it really was. And this site is vast.
Stupendous.
Around about 8% of the site has been uncovered.
And it's huge as it is, but can you imagine? Well, I wish that we would, we as a people were more interested in looking back at our history. I think it's really important, even though some people don't think so. Some people think we ought to write our own history. But what's been the best part of what we're doing is to, again, separate the wheat from the chaff and really dig, because it is all very interesting. You don't have to make anything up. It is, there are some amazing things that our ancestors have done, and there's true mysteries. You don't have to, make up a rumor or a story about it. But, it looks like we're down to the end. Wanted to do a quick shout out about our new show that's coming up. It's going to be showing on KGRA and playing on KGRA if you're only listening. And it's going to be something a little bit different, but it's going to be in addition to Night Vision. And we're going to be talking about issues that are important to everyone. And we hope that everyone will give us a listen, give us a chance, and let's see if we can do some good things in this world. But John, what do you want to say?
Sneak preview of the show?
Let's do it.
When I say, hey, hey, what's wrong with you? I want to turn you right to that just to see you smile. You don't gotta be there, I want to be more.
Special thanks to Wheel, the UK band who allowed us to use their copyrighted work for our theme. So really happy about that. And we're going to be talking about anything and everything that affects society, affects people.
Past, present, and future, I guess.
Past, present, I guess we're done. Looks like the clock is letting me know.
Yep. Okay.
So hope you'll stay tuned for more Night Vision, and in the very near future, what's left. Take care, everybody. Good night. Goodbye. Good morning.